It's time for another episode, and you are going to love this one that takes us all the way to Baraboo, Wisconsin, a small town with a big secret. Once the proud home of the Ringling Brothers Circus, the greatest show on earth, Baraboo still wears its circus history like a badge of honor. You can visit the Circus World Museum, see wagons, costumes, and learn about the dazzling performers who once called this place home. But behind the nostalgia, behind the parades and popcorn, lies a darker chapter. Not everything from the circus left town. You are listening to Death Kiss Traveler, the podcast that dives deep into the history, horror, and hauntings of your favorite places. I'm Marissa, your morbidly curious host, and today we are kicking off spooky season by stepping into the shadows of the abandoned clown dormitory. And if the stories are true, the only ones laughing there now are ghosts. Recently, several of my stories have led back to the circus, and there's something inherently eerie about it. Maybe it's just me, but the creepiness is part of its fascination. The circus has always been a world of extremes. Wildcard employees who seem to live on the edge, performers from the freak shows who defy imagination, and acts so astonishing that they blur the lines between reality and illusion. Behind the dazzling performances, though, there's a shadow. The sense that the spectacle is not just entertainment, but a world where the unusual, the strange, and sometimes the unsettling thrive. The Ringling Brothers were 7 siblings: Al, Otto, Alfred, Charles, John, Henry, and August, born to a German immigrant family in McGregor, Iowa in the mid-1800s. They grew up fascinated by performance and entertainment, staging small skits and musical shows in their hometown during the 1870s. In 1884, 5 of the brothers officially founded the Ringling Brothers Circus in Baraboo, Wisconsin. At first, it was a modest wagon show, featuring simple acts like juggling, skits, and music. But the brothers were ambitious and business-minded. They steadily expanded, adding animals, acrobats, and more elaborate performances. By the 1890s, the Ringlings had built one of the largest and most respected circuses in the U.S., traveling by train to reach their wider audience. Their reputation for wholesome, family-friendly entertainment gave them an edge over some of the rival shows, which had the reputations for being rougher or less reputable. When the Ringling Brothers first launched their circus in 1884, they needed a place to call home during the long, cold off-season. They chose Baraboo, and what grew there became legendary. Locals call it Ringlingville. The headquarters sat along the Baraboo River. At first it was simple: barns for animals, sheds for wagons, and workshops where costumes and props were repaired after months on the road. But year after year, the complex expanded. Soon it became a bustling world of its own, a place where elephants wintered. Wagons were painted bright with fresh colors, and performers returned each fall to rest and prepare for the next season. From 1884 until 1918, this was the beating heart of the circus. Imagine the sights and the sounds: blacksmiths hammering wheels back into shape, seamstresses mending glittering costumes, carpenters repairing elaborate parade wagons. Even in the dead of winter, the grounds echoed with life. This wasn't just a practical base. It was a symbol for the Ringlings' ambition. At a time when circuses were often seen as rough or disreputable, the brothers built their headquarters to show stability, respectability, and permanence. In many ways, Baraboo gave the Ringling Brothers the foundation to rise above their rivals. Eventually, as the circus empire grew, the winter quarters moved, first east and then to South Florida. But Baraboo remained. Today, the original buildings, workshops, and barns are preserved as part of the Circus World Museum, a 64-acre site that holds 7 historic winter quarter buildings, more than 200 wagons, and even a research library filled with rare circus documents, posters, and films. The site is now a National Historic Landmark, one of the largest surviving collections of original circus structures in the United States. Walking the grounds, you can almost feel the energy of a time when this quiet town became the winter home of wonder, where the magic of the circus was carefully rebuilt each year. And that legacy of the Ringling Brothers? Baraboo headquarters, not just barns and wagons, but the birthplace of a dream that would travel across America and, for time, truly earn its title as the greatest show on earth. By the year 1914, the circus traveled with 1,000 employees, 335 horses, 26 elephants. It required 92 rail cars to transport everything and everyone, and you could see it all for only 50 cents a person. In Baraboo, the clowns had their own building, a dormitory where they bunked during the long winters. Imagine it. Painted, stained sinks, grease paint smeared into the wood, the smell of sawdust and sweat. They practiced skits in the hallways, kept their costumes drying on lines, and stayed up late making each other laugh. But circus life wasn't always fun. Winters in Wisconsin were brutal. Injuries or illness often went untreated. There were stories of performers who never survived the off-season, buried quietly in local cemeteries, their names lost to time. And some believe one clown stayed behind. Let's rewind the clock back to the late 1800s. The circus season is over. The tents are folded, the animals are loaded onto trains, the wagons are rolling back toward a quiet little town in Wisconsin, Baraboo. Among them were the clowns. In the circus world, the clowns had their own space, what they called Clown Alley. It wasn't fancy. Think of it as long wooden buildings, barns warmed by the potbelly stoves, lit with lanterns that flickered against the sawdust floor. Inside, this is where laughter was built from the ground up. During the day, you'd hear it. A bucket clattering to the floor as a clown rehearsed a pratfall. Someone strumming a banjo to test the musical gag. A loud pop as a trick cigar misfires. Around the edges of the rooms, costumes hung in rows. Patched and repatched, bright colors doled from the road, but ready to be stitched back to life by seamstresses who worked right alongside the performers. It wasn't just rehearsal. It was a community. They ate together, worked together, and kept the circus's humor alive, even when the big top was nowhere in sight. Imagine the sound of the laughter echoing through the wooden halls, the smell of grease paint and sawdust in the air, and the feeling of being a part of something larger than yourself. Baraboo gave them stability. For performers who spent most of the year traveling from town to town, this place was kind of an anchor. The brothers built not just barns and wagon sheds, but dormitories, kitchens, workshops, and even spaces for families. For a few precious months, clowns weren't just characters in makeup. They were neighbors, friends, and part of a bustling little circus village along the Baraboo River. Today, if you visit Baraboo's Circus World Museum, you can walk through many of those same buildings. You can also go just down the street to the International Clown Hall of Fame and Research Center that continues the legacy. It's packed with costumes, props, and stories, preserving the lives of the very people who once filled those alleys with humor. You can step inside the old rehearsal halls at Baraboo's Circus World Museum after hours. But you might feel it immediately. A presence just beyond the edge of perception. Something watching from the shadows. Visitors report an almost tangible tension in the air, as if the walls themselves remember every step taken, every pratfall performed, every laugh that once echoed here decades ago. And then the sounds begin. Visitors have reported hearing a sharp, mocking honk from a circus horn, its sound reverberating down empty halls. The shrill squeak of balloons twisting fills the air, though no balloons are in sight, and no hands are seen at work. Then the footsteps, heavy and deliberate, the slap, slap, slap of clown shoes dragging across the rotting floorboards. These sounds don't remain stationary. They move, circling, closing in. At times they stop right behind, so close that one can feel a cold breath against their neck. One man recounted walking slowly down a narrow hallway lined with old props and dusty costumes. A flicker of a movement caught his eye in the corner. He froze. There, leaning just slightly forward, was a figure tall and gaunt, draped in the tattered remnants of what had once been a bright clown costume. The makeup was smeared, streaked down the pale face, and the eyes, impossibly dark, endless. They seemed to pierce right through him. Heart pounding, he turned quickly to get a better look, and when he glanced back, the figure had vanished. No sound, no trace, only the echo of his own rapid heartbeat. Another visitor, a woman exploring the same halls, told a similar story. She heard it first. A faint, broken chuckle. It wasn't joyous, not the kind of laughter that lifts the spirits. It was jagged, brittle and fractured, echoing through the empty barn like a memory of its former self. She froze, every hair on her arm standing on end, convinced someone was hiding just outside of sight. Staff later searched the building thoroughly, but there was no one there, just shadows, dust, and silence. Even those who make a career of investigating the paranormal have reported unsettling occurrences. Investigators using recording devices have picked up faint footfalls shuffling across the old wooden floors, the squeak of props being handled, and unmistakably the high-pitched giggle of clowns practicing in spaces no living soul occupies. Multiple witnesses describe the sensation the same way. It feels alive, purposeful. The clowns are still rehearsing, still perfecting routines that will never be performed in the living world. Among the most chilling accounts from Baraboo comes from a lone investigator who entered one of the rehearsal barns just before midnight. He walked slowly, his flashlight beam dancing across warped wood and abandoned props. Dust floated in the air like ash, and every footstep echoed too loudly, as if the building itself was listening. He later admitted that nothing felt unusual at first, just the silence of an old building, the smell of dust and mildew. And then he saw it. At the far end of the room, a cracked, floor-length mirror leaned against the wall. Its glass was warped with age, jagged fractures splintering his reflection into broken pieces. He stepped closer, and that's when something moved. It wasn't him. Behind his own reflection stood another figure. Tall, gaunt, draped in rags that might once have been bright colors, but were now nothing more than tatters. A clown costume faded into death. The face was worse, makeup smeared into jagged streaks across hollow cheeks, black sockets where eyes should have been. The investigator's breath caught in his throat. He spun around, flashlight jerking wildly. The barn was empty. Shadows and silence. Nothing more. When he turned back to the mirror, though the figure was still there, still behind him, still watching. And now, its head had tilted slightly to one side. Almost curious, almost playful. The faintest suggestion of a grin spread across its painted mouth. The man stumbled backward, refusing to turn his back to the glass. But as he moved to the exit, the clown's reflection didn't stay put. It shifted. Closer. Each time he glanced back, it was nearer. Never moving in real life, but closing in within the reflection. By the time he burst out of the barn, gasping in the cool night air, the image in the mirror had been right behind him. He swore he could feel it breathing on the back of his neck. The mirror, he said later, was worse than the apparition itself, because while the room was empty, the reflection told another story. A story where the clowns of Baraboo are still here, still watching, waiting for someone else to step into their world. And perhaps the most unnerving of it all, the figures. If glimpsed, never act. They do not perform tricks, do not speak, do not move beyond their silent observing positions. They simply stand in corners, watch from doorways, their hollow eyes following your every step, as if they are waiting for the audience that never arrives, trapped forever in the echoes of a circus long gone, their laughter lingering like smoke in the empty barns. Some say the winter quarters was a place of hardship and sorrow. Illness, injury, and the harsh reality of circus life left its mark here. Could it be that these shadows are the memories of performers long past, lingering in the spaces that once lived, laughed, and rehearsed? Or are there something else entirely? The spirits of clowns who never left, still practicing for an audience they will never see. One thing is certain. In Baraboo, when you wander the old rehearsal halls after dark, you are never truly alone. And one of my favorite stories of them all is of an investigator that came to Baraboo hoping to capture the evidence of the paranormal. He expected cold spots, maybe the flicker of an EMF meter, or a recording of an unusual, unexpected sound. What he didn't expect was contact. He was alone in one of the old rehearsal barns, his flashlight beams slicing through the dust that hung heavy in the air. Every footstep echoed like it belonged to someone else. Then he felt it. At first, just a shift in the atmosphere, like the air itself grew heavier, pressing down on his chest. He slowed, listening, and then it came. A touch. Fingers, cold, damp, icy, grazing across his shoulder. He froze, the fingers stretching unnaturally, curling slightly as if to hold him there. Panic surged. He spun around, but his flashlight revealed nothing. Empty air, shadows clinging in the corners. He bolted out the barn doors, across the gravel lot, straight to his car. He didn't stop moving until he slammed the door shut and fumbled his keys into the ignition. But then he saw it. On his jacket, smeared across the shoulder, where the hand had touched him, was a mark. A chalky, white fingerprint. Shaking, he drove off into the night, jacket still stained with the ghostly print. He kept it, refusing to wash it, claiming it was proof that the clowns at Baraboo don't just linger in the shadows of the mirrors. They don't just laugh. They reach out. They touch. And when you leave Ringlingville, watch out for hitchhikers. Highway 12 cuts through the heart of Sauk County, straight past Baraboo, lined by fields that stretch endlessly under the night sky. The locals call it quiet and peaceful, but they don't drive it after dark. Not alone, not anymore, because on some nights, something walks the shoulder. It begins subtly, a shadow, a flicker of a movement just at the edge of your headlights. And then you see him, a man, tall, thin, draped in a green army jacket that seemed to fade with time. His hands are stuffed into his pockets. His head is bowed, as if carrying the weight of the world, or perhaps something far darker. You think he's real, you slow down, maybe even prepare to offer a ride. But he doesn't move. He doesn't wave. He doesn't acknowledge you. He simply walks, steadily, deliberately, as if he owns the road. Then moments later up ahead, there he is again, the same man, same jacket, same gait. You pass him again, and your stomach knots. No car should have placed him there. No person could have covered that distance so quickly. And yet there he is, waiting, walking. Some witnesses report a third appearance. And this time it's different. They glance into the rearview mirror, and he's inside the car. Not at the side, not passing by, sitting in the back seat. Eyes hollow, dark, staring straight at you. The faint outline of a face pale as chalk under the shadows of a green army jacket. They slam on the brakes, heart pounding, blink. And then he's gone. No footprints, no tire marks, nothing but the hum of the highway and the chill of something that doesn't belong in the living world. Some believe he's a soldier, lost on the roads of Wisconsin, never allowed to return home. Others whisper of a fatal accident decades ago, a young man that was stuck on the very stretch of highway, doomed to walk the same road over and over, forever invisible, except to those unlucky enough to pass him at the right or wrong time. One driver swore that even after she reached her driveway, she caught a glimpse of him in her window, standing on the shoulder of her own yard, still walking, still waiting, still watching. And then he vanished. So if you ever find yourself driving Highway 12 late at night, keep your eyes on the road and the shoulder, because the man in the green jacket may already be there, waiting, walking, watching. We've wandered through the shadows of Baraboo, from the silent haunted rehearsal halls where the clowns linger in cracked mirrors and empty corners, to the lonely stretch of Highway 12, where a man in the green army jacket walks the shoulder long after the living have gone to sleep. Whether it's the painted eyes of a clown staring from a mirror, or the hollow gaze of a vanishing hitchhiker, these stories remind us that some spirits never truly leave. They move in the spaces we think are empty. They watch when we aren't looking, and sometimes they reach out. So if you ever find yourself wandering the circus grounds at night or driving that dark Wisconsin highway, remember this: you may not be alone. The ghosts of Baraboo are still performing, still walking, still watching. And maybe, just maybe, they're waiting for you. Thank you for listening to Death Kiss Traveler. This episode is dedicated to my sister Elise. This is my favorite time of year, and I want to know what stories you are intrigued about. What do you want me to talk about next? Do you believe in the ghosts of Ringlingville? You might think that the stories I've shared are all there is, but they're just the beginning. Hidden in the shadows of those old barns, behind the cracked mirrors and the dusty props, there are countless more spirits, sightings, and unexplained events waiting to be told. Stories so strange, so chilling, they make you wonder if the circus is ever truly empty. And those tales? Well, that's a podcast for another night. This podcast was so much fun writing. And as I was recording it, I got chills several times, full body chills that made me look over my shoulder and make sure there's not a clown watching me from behind. This podcast is written by me, Marissa. It's produced by Sunkissed Traveler, the travel agency that can save you time, stress, and money on your vacation. Thinking of a vacation? Want to visit Wisconsin? Visit sunkissedtraveler.com. Check show notes for details. That's sun-kissedtraveler.com. I'll see you next week.